Welcome to Basic Brewing Radio for Thursday, October 17th, 2024. I'm James Spencer. Here at Basic Brewing Radio, we're all about home brewing. This week, we take a field trip to Steve Wilkes' house and sip beers on the porch with a real live German brewer. Detlef Koertge is originally from Bavaria and now makes his home in northwest Arkansas. In this first part of a two-parter, Detlef, Steve's son Chase, and I talk about German beers, German beer culture, and get a little lesson on pronunciation. If you want to support us financially, check out patreon.com/basicbrewing, and many thanks to everybody who's helping out in that way. If you go to patreon.com/basicbrewing, you can see a long list of stuff that you can access if you sign up as a supporter. And many thanks to the new Patreon subscribers who are signing up every week. Your help is very much appreciated. If you're a user of the Patreon iPhone app starting in November, please use the Patreon website to sign up for new subscriptions rather than signing up for new subscriptions on the iPhone app. Apple's going to start taking a significant chunk of the proceeds from new subscriptions via iPhone starting in November, and that is new subscriptions. I believe if you've already subscribed using the iPhone app previously, I think you're okay. It's just, if you're just stumbling into us and want to support us, and we appreciate that, if you've got an iPhone Patreon app, go to the website. Anyway, financial subscribers will see an early release this week of Steve's Mash Your Luck Bochet Braggot. Steve approached the Mash Your Luck challenge to you'd hate to mash your nuck. He approached the challenge to make a big dark beer by cooking honey to a mahogany color to add to his wort. And that was a fun technique to bring into the equation. Very clever. I thought it made a delicious beer, of course. Last week, I asked for your help in gathering some questions for a pro-brewer roundtable that we're going to record on Monday the 21st. The topic is going to be essentially, what should brewers know when they're thinking about going pro in this day and age? So, are you considering taking the leap into professional brewing? If so, drop me a line at james@basicbrewing.com and send me your questions. And I'll also try to remember to post this on our Facebook page by the end of the week, too. I think it's going to be a fun conversation. My big dark Mash Your Luck beer is in the fermenter. My challenge was to brew a very high ABV, low bitterness black lager with world influences. Chris Colby and I collaborated on the recipe. Our strategy was to brew a moderate gravity Pilsner first and use the yeast from that to ferment the big beer, which wound up starting at 1.112 original gravity. I did a reiterated mashing with half of the grain, and then using the wort from that as the mashing liquid for a second mash with the second half of the grain. It worked well. I only had to boil for 90 minutes to achieve my target original gravity. I used a couple of piloncillo sugar cones. I found out that putting them in a Ziploc bag and whacking them with a meat tenderizer mallet reduced them to mush in no time. And that easily dissolved in the boil. I fermented both of those beers with L17 Harvest from our friends and sponsors at Imperial Yeast. For the 1044 Original Gravity Pilsner, I didn't use a starter. I didn't have to dust off my stir plate. Those 200 billion cells in that easy-to-open Imperial package went right to work. I fermented at 60 degrees Fahrenheit, or 16°C, which is the upper end of the recommended temperature range for L17 Harvest, and it was bubbling by breakfast. I kegged that beer on brew day for the big beer and was left with about a gallon of yeast slurry in the bottom of the carboy. I racked that 1.112 gravity wort on top of that slurry, added some oxygen just in case, and about 6 hours later, that fermenter was rocking. It really took off like a rocket. I think that's going to be a delicious beer. Another successful experience with Imperial Yeast. Check with your local homebrew store. There may be some of the seasonal A40 GF bubbles left for you to use in delicious fruit-based fruit juice-based fermentations. We thank Imperial Yeast for their continued support and for continuing to make an excellent, dependable product. Check out all the dependable deliciousness at imperialyeast.com. It's imperialyeast.com. Okay, now for something completely different. This is the first part of a fun two-part conversation. I'm enjoying getting to know Detlef. Steve's known him for a while now, first as a homebrew store customer and now a neighbor. Detlef is a talented homebrewer and comes to the hobby after growing up in Germany, where brewing traditions have roots that run back centuries. Steve Wilkes, welcome back to Basic Brewing Radio.
My mouth is full of cheese. And I can barely talk.
We're getting off on a great start. We're here sitting on your porch, and it's a beautiful day. It's a little warm today on October 11th, but we'll take it. Do you want to introduce our guests?
I can't pronounce. Our very special guest is Detlef, and I'm not even going to try.
I'm going to take a stab at it.
Okay.
Is it Koertge?
That's
Koertge.
perfect, yeah, Koertge.
All right. And he's a neighbor of yours.
Absolutely, and a former customer and an outstanding brewer.
Yeah.
That's the most important thing here.
We'll have no proof of it
thank
today.
you.
He didn't bring any homebrew
Well,
for us
that's
to enjoy. But
part two.
maybe we can go over to his house after this. And we got somebody else across the table from you.
Yeah, my son Chase Holloman, visiting from the Big Apple.
And welcome, Chase.
Thank you.
And you're in New York City, but you're working for a company in Fayetteville now.
Yes, I'm working remotely from New York City in Arkansas.
But you're going to stay up there?
Going to stay up there, yes.
So you're saying that New York is where you want to stay? Do you get allergic smelling hay? How do you feel about penthouse views?
I wish I had one.
Steve, do you get the thing?
I'm hungry for some hot cakes.
Chase is just saying, "Darling, I love you, but give me Park Avenue," is what he's trying to say. We are here today because when I heard that Steve lived across the street from a real homebrewing German, I said, boy, here's an opportunity to get some culture into this thing and to drink some beer. But first of all, before our beer gets warm, we are sipping on a homebrew from our good friend Scott Housel. This is say it for me, Detlef, this is your first task of the
Lichtenhainer.
Lichtenhainer. Is that close?
That's close, yeah.
Not good, but close.
No, I understand. I mean, the CH, as we pronounce it in German, is not part of the American vocabulary.
And I want to talk about that too. But this style, the Lichtenhainer, is as a sour smoked beer. It's a session beer, fairly low gravity. This is only 4.7%. And I thought it was kind of dangerous to start off on a sour smoked beer, that it might ruin our palates, but I don't think so, because this is a very delicate beer. So cheers, guys.
Cheers.
And what would you say in Germany?
Prost.
Prost.
Then you got to slam your glass down.
Oh. We're using paper or plastic cups.
It's not very satisfying with the plastic cup.
That's good.
I find it very refreshing.
Yeah.
The smoke is very light.
Yeah.
It's not overpowering. Would you say, Detlef, are you familiar with the Berliner Weiss?
Yeah.
To me, at least the Berliner Weisses that I've had, this is along those lines of sourness.
No, the Berliner Weissbier is just not smoked.
Right, exactly.
So that's the difference, but it's very close in terms of the citrusy and the refreshing taste of it.
Yeah, I think it's very nice. Chase, what do you think?
I am always a big fan of smoked malt. So almost every beer that has that in there, I'm a fan of. But it's certainly lighter than I was expecting. And you're right, it's nice for a warm day.
Yeah.
Yeah, the smoke to me is very light. You guys okay? I was afraid maybe my smoke sensors weren't working. In which case, if there was a fire in my forehead, I'd never know it.
Usually those go off randomly in the middle of the night.
So this is oak smoked wheat.
Yeah, smoked wheat, which is hard for me to say say in English. But that's where it gets the smoke from. Mostly Pilsner, oak smoked wheat malt, Vienna malt, and a little bit of corn sugar in there as well, dextrose. But then it's soured with a yeast. It's the Lallemand Philly sour yeast. So it's one of those, Frankenstein yeasts that will sour your beer.
I'm surprised that there's Vienna in that. I mean, the color doesn't speak to Vienna malt very much. It's such a light. You're right. Delicate's the right word for it. I was going to go with smooth, but I'm using that later.
That's your go-to word.
Yeah.
Well, excellent.
Yeah, I mean, it's maybe interesting to note that in Germany we have from Bamberg the Schlenkerler Rauchbier, which is also a smoked beer. It's dark. It's a dark beer. And they could use smoked wheat because the Reinheitsgebot, the purity law, only says you have to use barley or wheat, but it doesn't say that you can't kiln it over smoke. So that's why it was allowed to brew beer with smoked malt, because they just said, well, I mean, we killed the malt and there was just smoke in there.
It's a technicality.
It's a technicality, yeah. But I mean, because it's still barley or wheat. So that's interesting, that's how they got to the smoked beer in Germany without getting in trouble with the Reinheitsgebot.
Now, Detlef, give us some background. Where are you from? Where were you born? Just give us your is it bona fides? Is that your credentials as being a German beer lover?
I'm bona fide. So yeah, I'm from a town or city in Bavaria, Nuremberg, mostly known for the trials after the Second World War and the Hitler rally grounds.
Right.
Dark part of our history. I was born there in Nuremberg and lived there till 1997 when I came to the United States. Bavaria and specifically also Franconia, where I'm from, where Nuremberg is in, is pretty much the beer headquarter in Germany. So we have 278 breweries in Franconia as of today.
Wow.
It fluctuates a little bit, but just to give you the idea, Franconia is about 1/6 of the size of Arkansas, so about the size of Northwest Arkansas, 278 breweries.
Wow.
So, yeah, we like our beer.
Now, I would imagine that the size ranges, as far as the size of the production, the amount of beer that's produced in either those, or between those. Are we talking like all the way from, your corner pub kind of brewery to large manufacturing?
Yes.
I mean, what's the distribution in size?
Yeah, I mean, most small towns which have a restaurant, they have often a brewery attached to it. That beer doesn't sell anywhere else but in the restaurant. So it's just for their own use there. Then there are the little bigger ones, like, for example, Schlenkerle in Nuremberg, which is pretty much known in Nuremberg, but probably not outside. And then there's, we get to that later, the Tucher Brauerei, which is large, which is a huge brewery. Maybe not as big, maybe as Bud or Miller, but pretty big. And so it's the whole thing. They just counted all breweries.
And is it Pilsner the dominant style in the region?
Not in Bavaria. I mean, Pilsner is more popular in the northern parts of Germany. I mean, we have Pilsner, and like Tucher, for example, braus Pilsner. Even we get to that later, the Weihenstephan braus Pilsner. But I guess it has to do with the water, because most of the German breweries use spring water. So they usually have their own spring where they take the water from, and for Pilsner you need soft water.
And so what are the styles that are favored in your region?
In my region, I mean, the Bavarian beers are usually malty, dark, somewhere, usually the normal ones are around 5.5% ABV. IBUs are low, They are sweeter, as one would say. And then we have the bock beers, and the double bock, where it goes up in alcohol. I had my first experience with somebody would probably call that a triple bock because it had 11% alcohol.
I'd call that a hangover.
Yeah. And I didn't pay attention. We were out with friends, and I never had that beer. It's Weltenburger Asambock is the name of it. And I just sat down, and, it was a little gathering, and I had it's half liter, a bottle, right? And I drank that in about 15 to 20 minutes. That was no good.
And you were making bad life decisions after that.
I had to take a rest to get home. I was walking. That was a good thing.
Steve, have you traveled in Germany?
No, I have not. I spent about 4 days in the Frankfurt on Main airport. Air Force Base. That's it. I had orders. I was supposed to go to New Ulm. I don't know how to pronounce it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had orders for there, but I got sent somewhere else.
Chase?
No, but actually at the end of the month, I will be in Berlin and Bonn. So I'm very much looking forward to being in Germany in October.
Wow.
Good. Yeah. Bonn, the old capital of Germany, and Berlin, the new one.
Making the rounds.
I hope you have time to spend some time outside of work there. It's a cool city.
Yeah, I'm very much looking forward to it.
Now, we've got a few beers.
Yeah, we need to.
But I want to pace ourselves. But so, Detlef, what we've got in the little mystery bag down here? What should we have next?
You got some of the monastery brews, Weihenstephan, and that's something that is really a cultural icon. There are several old monasteries that are still operating. One of the oldest ones is Weltenburg, which is at the Danube River, founded in 1050 AD.
Oh, wow. What? Wow.
And then the next one, Weißenohe, which is very close to my hometown, founded in 1100. And then we go up a little bit. Weihenstephan was actually, the monastery was founded in 725, and then they started brewing in 1042. And then the next one is Andex, which is also still operating, founded in 1455. So these are still monastery breweries, and the monks there, which are Benedictine monks, they are still brewing their beer there.
Wow.
And the heavier stuff, like you have one in there, which we try a little later, the Corbinian, specifically for Lent.
Because they're fasting at that time.
Exactly.
And they can still drink beer, right?
Yeah. There's actually a funny story about that. I don't know if it's true, but it gets told over and over again, how they come to brew beer, because it's alcohol, and so people say, well, you should not drink alcohol. And so the story goes that they brewed that heavy beer for Lent, and then one of the monks said, well, are you sure we should drink this? We should probably ask the Pope if that's okay. So they kegged the beer in a little keg and put it on a cart and hauled it to Rome. And by the time it got to Rome, it was sour. Oh. Because they didn't have the preservatives. And, there's Bavarian beer doesn't have that many hops in it either.
Right.
So it got there, it was sour. So the story goes that the Pope tasted it and said, if you want to drink this for Lent, be my guest.
You're punishing yourself.
So that's how the story goes, why they're still brewing.
He had the same reaction to Malort in the 1930s.
Now, help me. Weihenstephaner?
Weihenstephaner, yeah.
Weihenstephaner?
Yeah.
Is it a little bit of V sound with it? Weihenstephaner?
Yeah. That's the brewery is called Weihenstephan, and then the Weihenstephaner means it's from Weihenstephan.
Okay, right.
Know. And the Festbier that you have there, that's a brew that's a seasonal brew, which they do for Oktoberfest and local county fairs and stuff like that, where you can get that. They have the May fest, in May, where they erect that tree there, and these kind of things. So that's where they brew this beer.
So this is the fest beer.
Yeah.
Fest beer.
Yeah, like a feast. Fest is feast, So, and maybe also noteworthy, all the beers, or not all the beers, most of the beers in Bavaria are a lager.
Yeah.
So there's almost no ales except for Weissbier. Weissbier is a Obergärig, and the other ones are Untergärig. So one ferments at the bottom, one top
fermenting,
as opposed to bottom fermenting.
There are two beers that I am aware of that I recall that are ales. One is the Weissbier, the filtered and unfiltered ones, the light and the dark ones. And then the other one is famous is the Altbier.
Altbier. We would say Altbier.
Yeah, exactly. So that's the most famous one is Hannenalt, and that's northern Germany. That's the other ale I know. I don't know any other ale.
Well, cheers again.
Cheers.
Cheers.
It's very nice. It's very, very malty and very drinkable.
Delicious.
You could drink a liter boot of that in a hurry.
So, that's I looked up the stats. So that's a 5.8% ABV, 25 IBU. That fest beer here. So it's just a little higher in IBU that we usually have in Bavaria, but
yeah, it's got a nice little balancing hop bite.
I was surprised at the bitterness of it, given the malt balance that it's going for, but it is very drinkable, very good,
very, very refreshing again.
yeah, and that would go in a 1 liter stein usually then at the fest.
And with the beer, usually waitresses carrying as
6 to
many as
7
they
in
can
one hand,
in one hand, and seeing the contests with seeing how many they can carry at one time is a lot of fun to watch.
Yeah, I just watched the video on the Oktoberfest. I mean, she had the two left and right, and then but not just had holding them like this, but had another 4 on top of
Oh my goodness!
So she was carrying like 40 pounds on
Yeah,
each,
exactly.
on each
It's
side.
it's not only the dexterity and the balance; it's the weight of the beer and the glass.
Yeah, the glasses.
And these are not thin glasses. No. So let me ask you this question, because I struggle with the pronunciation of some of these German words, and there are a lot of words that are tied with brewing that are of German origin that we use. And as a native German speaker, let me ask your opinion on this. And to illustrate what I'm talking about, I want to call us back to a Saturday Night Live skit of many years ago, where Jimmy Smits was the guest, and it took place in a meeting room at a TV network, probably. But they were all speaking Spanish or speaking Spanish words and really punching the pronunciation. So they were talking about Nicaragua, and and they ordered food in, and they said, what did everybody have? And one would say, I had the burrito, and somebody else had an enchilada. And Bob Costas, the sportscaster, came in, and Phil Hartman's character introduced him as Bob Costas.
Bob, this is our economics correspondent, Antonio Mendoza.
Oh, hi, Antonio Mendoza. Well, nice
Antonio,
to meet you.
Bob Costas. Nice to see you.
So my worry with trying to be too accurate on these foreign to me language words is that I'll sound like a jerk. I'll sound too pretentious. What's your opinion on that, Detlef? I mean, how much leeway do we have?
No, I mean, we just spoke about it when I came here first thing, about the Vorlauf.
Right.
And so when I was brewing, and I talked to, I think it was at the brew shop in Chicago, and the owner is a she, so she said, talked about the Vorlauf to clear what comes out of the mash tun. And I'm like, what are you talking about? And then she showed me the word, and I said, oh, you're talking about Vorlauf.
So
Because-
Vorlauf.
Vorlauf, because in German the V is pronounced like an F.
Right.
And the Lauf is Lauf, which means the pre-run, literally translate to pre-run. Vor, it means pre, and Lauf means run, pre-run. So basically you let that go through to clear the...
Right. It's
what's coming
before
out.
you collect the wort.
Right,
So.
exactly. So
Or the Furt, W-O-R-T,
W?
wort, the wort, vert.
Yeah, we don't call it the wort in German.
Where does that come from?
No, that's an English word.
I think it's probably English.
Oh, okay. All right, I'm
word.
trying too hard.
No, I mean this is not a German word. The word is God. Now I forgot the German.
You've been here too long.
I know, 27 years. So. Wow. And I lost contact to my brewer friend in Germany. So most of what I do is on English brewing sites. So maybe it comes back to me. Wort. Now, wort is an English
Oh,
word.
well, there you go. Again, I'm trying too hard. See? But I brought a list of words. I think that they're of German origin. So I want to have you pronounce these words. Now, I would say ton.
Yeah, but
That's an English word.
It is an English word
yeah,
again.
the-
Wow.
It's actually an
Germ-
Anglo-Saxon word.
Well,
Pretty
there-
sure.
yeah. Okay.
But that's closely related to German.
right. And
Well, that's why
just-
it's so short and sweet.
Yeah. In Frisia, they have some cartoons they call Looney Tunes.
yeah.
I'm
no,
reaching.
the German word is Tonne, so it's very close.
Right.
Tonne, and it usually goes together with lauter. Lauter is a German word. Lautertonne, which would be the lauter ton.
I've heard some people call it a tune. Is that just,
I don't
just
know.
completely off?
Well, we live next to a road that I call Rupel and other people call Ruppel.
I know.
I don't know.
Yeah, that is true as well. And we went over the Vorlauf,
yeah. Yeah.
and then I say Kreuzen.
Yeah, that's called Kreuzen in German too.
Okay,
So that's
with
really-
a little bit of a roll on the R.
Yeah, Kreuzen.
And then I would say Hefe,
Yeah, it's Hefe.
Hefe,
Yeah, which is the yeast.
Hefe.
Yeah,
So if you have a Hefe Weizen,
exactly.
that'd be a yeast.
Which we get to later.
Right. It'd be a yeasty white beer, essentially, right?
Exactly.
And then you've already said the Reinheitsgebot.
Yeah. Now the Hefeweizen, when we talk about Weizenbier, the top fermenting beers, they do two of them. They do the filtered one and the unfiltered one.
Right.
And the unfiltered one usually has like a little cake of yeast at the bottom in the bottle, and it's an art form to pour that, because you pour the beer real slow, and then you leave about a quarter of an inch at the bottom, and then you shake the bottle to get that yeast off the bottom, and then you pour the yeast in.
Yeah, if you go to a good German restaurant, they'll do the little bit of theater. where
Exactly.
they-
Yeah.
But then Helles,
Helles, yeah.
that's an easy one. Dunkel,
Yeah?
I say Trub.
Yeah.
I'd say true.
Some
Yeah,
people say
Trub.
Trub.
It's Trub.
Trub.
Yeah.
Trub.
I mean, this is always in Germany, there's that rolling R. Trub.
It's true. It's true. I am not from Havana, baby.
And then this is our favorite word. How do you
Spunding.
Spunding?
Bunding.
We've been saying it right.
Yeah.
And why do you use the word Spunding, Steve, when you're brewing?
I don't know.
When you're brewing under pressure.
Oh, that's right.
Just made so many people happy. This which brings us to an email.
Why don't you bring me to a beer?
Oh, okay. Well, just a minute. Let me read this. It's a short one. Dan from Beloit, Wisconsin wrote, I almost got myself in trouble. My wife and I were at one of our religious services. From the stage, the topic was the stress of life and how all of us are under pressure. Under my breath and not so loud that my wife could hear, The soundboard effect came on, totally spontaneous and subconscious. I all of a sudden got the strangest face and darted my eyes in the direction of my wife. Thank goodness it wasn't audible to her. So it's like a Pavlovian thing. James and the Basic Brewing family, you're the only ones I can share that with. Only this crew will understand. That's Dan from Beloit, Wisconsin. If my wife is listening, this is Fred from Omaha. So
That's funny.
I had to share that. I figured when we said Spunding, and I'm so glad it's Spunding. It's so much more fun to say.
Yeah. That's absolutely correct.
We have fun with the Spunding.
The Spunding.
Do you have a Spunding valve?
No, not here.
Oh. You've got one at another place.
No, I mean, I have never seen one here. I mean,
You sell them?
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
You sold a couple of
had one.
Spunding valves.
Okay. Yeah. They spunded with them.
Where should we go next, Detlef?
well, I mean, I guess we work ourselves up to the Corbinian through the Hefeweißbier.
Oh, okay. Oh, so we go
We stick with Weihenstephaner.
Weihenstephaner Hefeweißbier.
Yeah.
Also great. So what?
So let me see if there's a little.
I don't think that one may be filtered. There's no instructions. Sometimes the bottle has instructions.
Yeah, well, we'll
On
see
the-
how it
Is
comes
that
out.
so? When you get a filtered Hefeweizen, is that Crystalweizen? Mm-hmm. And then there's Dunkel, which is the dark wheat
Yes.
beer. Mm-hmm. And then Mithefe is the cloudy.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah,
well,
there's some
a
at the
little
bottom.
bit.
Yeah.
There's a little bit. Mit meaning with.
With, yes. Das Weißbier.
This Weissbier to me leans more toward the clovey side than the banana side.
They usually do. I noticed that too. I mean, I think the Belgian one lean more to the banana side.
Now I've had some German wheat beers, Weiss beers that have been clovey and also banana-y. And if you get a dark one, a Dunkel, it's like banana bread. You know, it's very, in a delicious way. It's like drinking banana bread. Because you get the dark, kind of malt or the dark grain in there, with the banana flavor and the spice. I think it's really good. It's spicy without being overpowering. Mm-hmm. What do you think, Chase?
I'm a big fan of this style. Anymore, I used to really enjoy big hoppy beers when I first started being able to drink. But since then, I have really gone the exact opposite direction, and I love a real nice, balanced, malty beer. But this time of year, we're starting to get into the real dark malty, which is my favorite time of year.
Mm. What's interesting to me about this one, I haven't had this Weihenstephan for a while, is that usually the wheat beers or the Weissbier in Germany has a very strong carbonation. This one is not that strong. I mean, and that's what makes it a beer that people in Germany drink a lot in the hot summer because it's very refreshing. So yeah, this one is actually pretty low on the carbonation here compared to some others. There's a Paulaner Weissbier that has more carbonation.
Do you think that they don't alter the recipes for the American market? Do they? Do you think?
I don't think so. I mean, this tastes pretty much exactly what I'm used to. The monastery beers like this one, they tend to be different from like the large breweries. Like Tucher, for example, the Tucher Weissbier tastes completely different. It's also, like you said, more on the banana side and much more carbonation.
What about yourself? Or Steve? We didn't get your input on this latest beer, the Hefeweizen.
It's smooth.
We're all ready to smooth.
No, I mean, I agree with everything that everyone has said. It's a lovely beer. I buy this brand of beer fairly often, and I really enjoy it. And style. I mean, I buy the Hefeweizens, and whenever I see it, and I'm like, I really like German beer a lot.
Yeah, it's delicious.
No, but they're all delicious, you know.
Yeah,
I mean,
maybe also to the brewing process. I had a friend in Germany who was a brewmaster, and we talked a lot in the past when I wasn't homebrewing about the brewing process. And most of the breweries, specifically the smaller ones, still do the step mash. So they start at maybe at 95 for an acid rest or doughing in, then they go to about 125 for a protein rest. And then depending on what style they're brewing in, they go to 144 and then 162. And then the times vary, maybe shorter 144 and longer 162, so to get to the 1 hour. That's what usually the smaller breweries do. And I was just looking up one of the monastery breweries, Andex, which is a smaller monastery. They brew all their beer in decoction.
Oh, yeah.
So they're very traditional in their brewing process, So it's not just like throw it in 164, see if it ends up at 152 and let it sit there for an hour.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I have interviewed someone who brewed at Hofbrauhaus.
Yeah.
Which is a German-run
Yep.
brewery chain, and they're very strict on their procedures, and very it's these are things, I guess, they have come upon these methods because they have worked for centuries.
Yeah.
And if it ain't broke, don't fix it, kind of a thing. But you can't argue with success. I mean, when you get a beer that's as good as a lot of these German breweries put out, it's kind of, why would you dumb it down? Why would you change things to be more efficient if it works so well?
Yeah, and I mean it's a little more time, but it's like you said, the results are just good, I mean, that's maybe also interesting. I mean, because here, if I wake up tomorrow, I can say, okay, I'm a brewmaster and I'm opening up my own brewery. That wouldn't work in Germany. So to become a brewmaster, you have to do a 3 to 3.5 year vocational training at a brewery. And after that training, when you pass your test, you'll be a journeyman. Then you can still not open a brewery. Then you have to do 2 to 2.5 more years to become a brewmaster, a master craftsman. And when you have that title, then you can open up your brewery. So it's a 5-year process to get to that point where you can open up your own brewery.
So it's an apprenticeship. It's a trade. It's something that they take very seriously.
Yes. So I mean, this is my friend. Who was a brewmaster. He worked at a large actually at Tuche. So he was a brewmaster at Tuche. So he didn't have his own brew house, but that was his process. It's like 3 years working at the brewery, learning the ropes, and then you get your tests, and then you have 2 more years, and then you have to do more school, and then you get your brewmaster certificate.
Is there such a thing in these modern times, in these times of craft beer, and just curious about American influence? Are there such things in Germany of quote unquote craft breweries that are like small and that kind of buck that system, sort of? Yeah,
no, I mean you cannot buck it because you have to have that brewmaster certificate. Otherwise, you can't open a brewery.
So legally,
that's legal requirement. But there are small breweries. I mean, like I mentioned, the Schanzenbräu in Nuremberg, which is a small brewery. I mean, they probably are like a 2-3 barrel brew house.
Oh wow!
And so it's a very small brew house. And but to open such a thing, you have to be a brewmaster. And you can always brew I mean, there's no limitation on what you can brew at home, But if you want to do it commercially, you have to have those journeyman and brewmaster certificates.
Huh. So are these smaller breweries, is anybody straying from the traditional styles?
They do. They experiment, and the rules in terms of the Reinheitsgebot have loosened a little bit because of the EU. Because, I mean, there was this fight about, like, for example, Belgian beers where there's cardamom in there and whatever, and orange peel and,
Willy-nilly.
So they were, like, fighting that. They said, well, you can't call that beer, But the EU said we need to unify that, because there's French beer, there's Belgian beer, there's Dutch beer, Heineken, this kind of stuff. And so it's unified now. But in Bavaria, most of them still stick to the Reinheitsgebot. And but they are experimenting. I mean, you find some beer with spices in them, or you do not find cucumber beer.
It's probably a good thing.
Well, peanut butter.
So
I'm sure there's some good ones out there. I think I've had a good cucumber beer at Homebrewer Con, maybe.
Yeah, but they experimenting too. They are allowed now to do that and sell it. Yeah, I mean, it's not as much as here. I mean, I think the experimental part here is much bigger, where people try all kinds of different things and such. I mean, the beer styles, like there's a Berliner Weisse, which is a little different, and then everything else is lager and alt.
Should we drink another? I mean, we're splitting 12-ounce beers between the four of us now, so we're. That's why we're not drinking whole beers each here, so we're being responsible. But where should we go next, Detlef?
Yeah, well, now we go to something substantial, the Corbinian. Ooh. That's also a Weihenstephan beer. It's a Doppelbock with 7.4% ABV and a 16 IBU.
Oh, and so now we've got this is a full pint, so we can get a bigger.
Oh yeah, I was going to say that's half a liter. Yeah,
we get a bigger share this time.
Interesting thing about this one, the Corbinian, is the name Corbinian comes from the monk. That was his first name, Corbinian. He founded Weihenstephan. Oh.
So this is the founder's beer.
Yes, and you see this is kind of like the color, I'd say, is like used motor oil.
It's more chocolatey looking.
Yeah, it's got an amber glint to it.
Yeah, it's a pinkish hue, an amber hue.
It's very dark. I mean, this is one of the darkest beers that you would find, but it's still different from a porter or such because it's a lager.
A Corbinian. For Steve. Steve keeps running away and then coming back.
So you got all these beers at the
at Liquor World.
Liquor World.
Yeah.
I have to go there and see what else they have.
And they had other German beers there as well, but I didn't know if they were outside the region, that we wanted to concentrate on.
Yeah.
But this is not an ad for Liquor World, but they've got some really good beer selection.
Yeah.
There. Cheers, guys! Again.
Cheers.
Steve, this is the Corbinian.
Now we're up to 7.4 ABV.
Oh yeah, now we're in
lovely.
we're in a new neighborhood now.
Ooh, that's ringing my bell.
That is really a good beer. Real good mouthfeel, malty.
Yeah, I like that.
Very caramel notes.
But not so heavy, not as heavy or as thick and sharp as a stout. This is like an English stout.
Right.
It smells heavier than it is.
Oh, that's what I've always said. I don't know where you've been.
Oh, wish I had a nickel.
So yeah, this is something that would be a typical winter beer in Germany. That you. Yeah.
Yeah, it's caramely without being sticky. I mean, it seems like to me that would be very hard to achieve, is to get that level of carameliness, but it seems like it finishes fairly low. I'm assuming compared to other giant, big. And this is not a giant beer. I mean, we have just standard IPAs that are 7.5% here. Mm-hmm. So it's in terms of the American palate, it's not a huge beer. No. But no, super. I mean, all of the beers are going to be super clean fermentation. I'm assuming any fruitiness that comes off of this would come from like the grains. Mm-hmm. The hops are just there to provide a balance to the sweetness of the malt. Mm-hmm. Just very, very well crafted.
Yeah, obviously they don't tell you about what hops they use, but I would bet that this is all Hallertau.
Yeah. Yeah, I bet it would be too. I was going to ask about the water chemistry for this beer in particular. Just meaning, water's always important. I don't mean to act like it's not, but it's so important to have soft water with Pilsner beers, etc., and kind of hard water for IPAs, like we would brew. So I was just wondering how much you pay attention to water chemistry.
So, I started homebrewing when I came to the United States, and I always used my local water. I don't do any chemistry. I say I'm like, the beer is what it is with my water that I have. And the only thing I do is I filter it. I do not do a reverse osmosis. I do just a carbon filter,
Just to get the chlorine out.
I want the chlorine out, and then whatever else maybe is in there, that would kind of work not well. I mean, I measure usually my mash pH to see where I'm at, and I end up most of the time somewhere around 5.3 or something like that. So, which is okay with me. And I noticed, though, when I moved from the Chicago suburbs to Arkansas, that the same beer tastes different.
Oh, in what way?
I think the water here is much harder than what I had up there. So there's more calcium in there, And so the beer is I would say a little rougher here.
Yeah. I agree. Yeah, I completely agree with that. And I think that's why highly hopped beers do very well with our water. And say a real Pilsner or a Helles style beer would be a little rougher around the edges. Still delicious, but not maybe have that subtlety that the proper water would have.
So yeah, I understand the water chemistry. I've been reading up on it, and I probably could do it, but I just live with what I have. So I just turn on my faucet.
Well, there's something to be said for adjusting to your environments. You can use the brewing software to set up your water profile. Like I set my water off, to tap water off to be examined. Mm-hmm. And you could put that in your brewing software, and it'll tell you, add this much of these chemicals to get the, to match this style profile. And sometimes they do. Most times I forget. But as Steve and I say often, we're pretty happy with the beers that we brew with this water. It seems like it's pretty, it's pretty accommodating water for most styles. Can it be dialed in to be better? Sure. But maybe you wind up just brewing styles that you like, mm-hmm. and you like them because they taste good with your water. That's how a lot of these styles have arisen in different regions, is because they taste good with what they got.
Even in Germany, I said that northern Germany, they have more Pilsner beer, but the original Pilsner from Pilsen, that water is so soft that you can barely take a shower with it.
Can't get the soap off.
Yeah. Huh. And you can tell the difference between that Pilsner and German Pilsners, So, yeah, I'm just working with what I have. I'm kind of, I don't want to win competitions. I just want to brew beer that I like.
Yeah, you're talking to the right people here.
Yeah.
Many thanks to Detlef, Steve, and Chase. We did have one of Detlef's beers afterwards, and he is a very good brewer. Next week, we get into Detlef's perspectives as a home brewer, who is also an engineer. Please remember to send in your questions for our roundtable of professional brewers on what advice you would want if you're going pro. Send me those questions before you forget, as I would. I would forget. If you have brewing questions, show suggestions, or just want to say howdy, write to james@basicbrewing.com, or just fill out the contact form at basicbrewing.com. And please don't forget to tell us where you're from. Check out our mobile-friendly shop at basicbrewingshop.com. Thanks to everybody supporting us through our Patreon page. Special goodies coming your way. Check that out at patreon.com/basicbrewing. So until next time, till then, thanks for listening, everybody. I'm James Spencer. Production help for Basic Brewing Radio and our website is provided by Kelly Dotson. Basic Brewing Radio is a production of Active Voicing. We'll talk to you next time, everybody. In the meantime, stay well and stay tuned. So long.